Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Moving Forward. Tonight, the program will be one with a difference, as I will try to take in as much as I can, because it has been an eventful week. Over the last week, I have somewhat tinkered with climate change and global warming. I make no excuse for continuing on this note at the beginning of my program. It seems as if the global world is still sleeping. However, ladies and gentlemen, even though they are sleeping, let us show them that we are awake in that respect, and are therefore concerned that world leaders must understand the time for talking is over and done with. It just cannot continue any longer, and that the developed countries must understand that they now have to give back something, as they were the main polluters in order to develop the way they are today. These included China later on. Our country and others have begun the process, and therefore others must follow. Even the UN General Secretary has opened his eyes to what is taking place and is also making his pleas heard all over. Even here in St. Lucia, we see and hear about people who are given positions in that respect. And yes, some are qualified in passing exams in order to get a piece of paper. And some are good talkers in that respect. However, having to put their knowledge from their pieces of paper into practice, they simply fail miserably. This is sad to see, because many go on to pass exam, get promotion instead of executive level. What they have learned into practice, they cannot put it into practice. Sometimes I don't blame them. If the systems we have allowed this, personally, I hold no grudge. But we'll continue to say that I have to on this subject, or to talk on this subject until the cows come home. And I'm of the firm opinion that the government must now take the bull by the horn before it is too late. The sort of pollution that is taking place in this country cannot simply carry on. When you see people throwing litter out of the minibuses, as if these individuals cannot be, and if these individuals cannot be caught, then the owner of these buses must be made to be accountable for their passengers throwing debris out of the minibuses into the public domain. It must not be, tolerated at any cost. I believe that throughout the school system, that pollution should be a subject that has to continually be taught if we are not to have blocked drains, sea pollution, throwing food all around that attract insects, which encourages mosquitoes, etc. In some countries of the world, we are beginning to see dengue fever coming back to the fore because of pollution. This is something we have to be concerned with, and therefore our children must be taught these areas of the environment that is very important in our present day life. Before going any further, let us stop to pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we come together on this day, and in our prayers, we must ask our Holy Father to give the Prime Minister the health and strength he needs to govern this country on the right path of righteousness. I believe that at this juncture, he's the right person to bring us into the light. We are getting there somehow. When one considers the darkness we were in under the last government. Therefore, we have been blessed to have Philip Joseph Pierre as our Prime Minister to lead us into the brighter tomorrow. We thank you and praise you, O Lord, because you are without a doubt the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Amen. Tonight I quote from Sirach, chapters 22, verses 19 to 26. If you stick something in your eye, tears will flow. And if you hurt a person deeply, you will discover his true feelings or her true feelings. If you throw rocks at birds, you will scare them away. And if you insult a friend, you will break up the friendship. Even if you have a violent argument with a friend and speak sharply, all is not lost. You can still make up with him or her. But any friend will leave you if you insult them. If you are arrogant, if you reveal his secrets, or if you turn on him unexpectedly. Gain the confidence of your neighbor if he is poor. Then you can share his happiness if he becomes successful. Stand by him when he is in trouble. And if you want to share with him when better times come his way. Fumes and smoke appear before the flames do. Insults comes before violence. I will never be afraid to protect a friend, and I will never turn a friend away if he needs me. If I suffer because of him, everyone who learns of it will be on guard against him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to start on another note, but as many of you will remember, I made a start with Julian Alfred's tremendous success at the Paris Olympics that should have made every St. Lucian, young or old, proud of her achievements and be overjoyed. We all were on that joyous occasion. However, there is always one or two who use such occasions to peddle their wares. An individual calling himself Barnabas Bruno, writing on Facebook from Switzerland, he says, as he puts it, made the statement that instead of speaking about Julian last week, I was more concerned about beefing up the Prime Minister and talking about my daughter and myself. This was what he had to say. Ladies and gentlemen, who heard the program, I'm sure, you can now judge for yourself. As he began by writing, I'm sorry, this should be a tribute to Juju. The content is more to big up for Prime Minister PJP. Credit for his 13-year-old daughter himself and personal assassination on Alan Chastanet. And finally, he writes, who is this guy? And what is his plan with this broadcast? What was so upsetting is that this individual never showed that he or she thought what he or she thought was necessary to write on such an occasion in honor of this lady's achievement. He or she simply said nada, yet he is keen to criticize, but seems more interested in my dissection of Alan Chastanet. What this individual had to say was so far from the truth. And everyone who heard the show could not believe this nincompoop. And what annoyed me was the inference being made then that he tried his best to make it look as if my main concern was to malign Alan. My friends were simply flabbergasted and sent me the Facebook piece that he wrote. What this individual must come to realize is that anyone with a little bit of common sense, and it's not common, can debunk the lies put out by the United Wreckers of the Poor and its leaders, more so Alan Chastanet and Guy Joseph. That is why the latter has to plead with original UWPs to return back to the fold. Alan, without a doubt, was the biggest spender when compared with other prime ministers in this country. He simply did not care about fiscal responsibilities. We saw more debt than ever in our history. Yet this guy has the gall to criticize Philip, the prime minister, who is a man of the people and for the people. He has shown this on several occasions. Well, I said to him that he does not need me to do this because he's certainly doing it for himself. The fact is that he is simply unable to tell the truth, that guy, because Alan, because that is not part of his vocabulary. He's simply a pathological liar. And if you disagree with his lies, then you become an enemy. I know that. I say to individuals like these, go and ask those who know the individual well, such as Stevenson King and many others who have simply deserted him and the United Records of the Poor. Go and ask Guy why they have left the party fumbling in the dark. He has had such to say in that respect. When our technicians heard about that, they could not believe it, because they said that you spoke about Julian for 14 minutes, and throughout the program you mentioned her. This nincompoop, Barnabas, or whatever he calls himself, failed to realize when I spoke about my 13-year-old daughter, who was simply ecstatic about Julian's win, that it was not only about her, but every young person in the country. Therefore, we see how an idiot can trivialize something worth celebrating by all, whether young or old. This is the type of reprobate we have breathing in this country at this present moment, pretending that they live in Switzerland. Well, I say to him that he will continue to hear about Alan Chastain's mishandling of this economy when he was Prime Minister, and everything to do with the development of St. Lucia, and when he was Prime Minister, that he did not do. I'm strongly of the opinion that he was the worst Prime Minister the Caribbean has seen or heard of. And if many of the followers are honest and not like you, brother, then they would say the same and think likewise, that he was terrible, and that is why he was simply kicked out to pasture for a long time to come. Oh, tonight I feel a little bit solemn and sad, because although we have 3.5 months to go before the end of the hurricane season and also the typhoon season, we are seeing so much damage being done in all parts of the world. And much of it is due to global warming and climate change. Yet many seem oblivious to what is taking place, because many simply don't care or want to know. And it's at this juncture I'll take my first break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are selfish people in this world of ours. What amazes me is that the first time something affects them, they want to blame the government, the leaders of the world, and everyone in their vicinity, but never themselves. Who was too selfish to listen to good advice? They were. These are individuals who were too blind to see because of their selfishness, the greed, and their arrogance. What really bothers me is that today many people are on their phones, and they use their phones for all purposes. And some almost live with that phone. Yet maybe 1% out of 100% who use it try to educate themselves as to what it means by global warming and climate change. Not only that, but to look at the weather patterns around the world. Yet, in my uneducated mind, I look to see what is going on in the world. As I write, I look at England is having some of its hottest days ever. One has to ask why. Yet many are still in the dark as to what global warming and climate change is all about. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago on this program, the docks where the big ships come into our little harbor on the island in Castries was a place where anyone or everyone during those days used to go to learn to swim. The water there was fresh, and one could see the bottom of the ocean there. Then it was as clear as one could see, yet today it is hazardous for anyone to fall in that water. It is so polluted that it is simply unbelievable. Yet no one took notice, not even the authorities then. Many of our rivers were so clean, so much so one was able to go around catching crayfish, as it was called. Yet today it is simply unheard of, even in the cleanest waters in the land. Yet the riverside was a place of meeting, and people use these areas for washing their clothes, some for bathing. That to an extent is no more. In some parts, yes, without a doubt, times have changed. I know that. I believe that it is the very reason why I now say that all leaders of this country, that they should go to Taiwan to see how they have dealt with their global warming and climate change. There is a river in the south of the country which is called the Love River, and which was allowed to deteriorate because of one thing or another in Gaochong. Yet today, that river has been returned to its former glories as the Love River, and is now one of the cleanest rivers that one can find in Taiwan. It is truly the Love River. One has to ask, why? I see some of this in this country and other parts of the world would question why a household should have 5 or 6, that's on another subject, 5 or 6 dustbins, as some see this as very unusual. Yet it is done so as to be able to separate the garbage that can be recycled, and therefore making citizens of that country aware of the waste that is being thrown out and can still be used in producing other products. Many countries were doing so many years ago, but they were laughed at. Why? Because to an extent, many were simply not concerned about climate change and the effects of pollution that was willfully being done, even in our own country. The way our people pollute by throwing waste and garbage all over is a very serious problem, because one of the main subjects from a very young age that should be taught is to the effects of pollution. Our school children should be aware of that. Not too long ago, floods hit Beijing and water was up to waist level, and the sewer on the Lotus Bridge became a fountain. Can you believe it? The number of young people out of work in that country has now risen tremendously, and therefore young Chinese have no money to spend, some even to pay their rent, and therefore many are sleeping on the sidewalks at night. Not only that, many have moved out of the area they've moved out to go to work in the cities, simply have nothing to send back money-wise to their people. Therefore, many villages are in dire trouble. Due to the heavy rains and flooding, many villages have been swept away. Loss of life is incredible. Widespread flooding is now a reality, to the extent we are seeing flash flooding. Water in some areas is 1 meter deep, which is simply disastrous for some of those outlying areas. We're also seeing huge landslides. We've seen it in Taiwan, where heavy rain for many days weakened the structure of the stone and rock preparation. There needed to be acute vigilance where a mountain collapsed, destroying houses and blocking the roads. We also seen tornadoes in the United States, more frequent than ever, that are more powerful and doing great damage to towns and cities. The world therefore cannot sit idly by and think that these phenomena will go away. Italy has had floods, heavy rain, not too long ago, even as I speak, and houses destroyed by the storms, howling winds. People have never experienced that before. This, without a doubt, is testament to nature's danger and devastation is occurring. Sea level rising, flooding areas that have not seen such winds in the past, or rain. Storms, devastation surpass all predictions. Releasing dam water can cause serious soil erosion, impact ecosystems, negate negative effects. And as I said, China is going through many serious effects. Europe is having that too. Not long ago, that's Europe, it had a 7.3 magnitude earthquake, which did severe damage to that part of the country. This is with the soil erosion that is taking place, the overflow and busting of dams, and moreover, the farming areas in China, in low-lying areas, are taking severe bashing. So much so the shortage of food is growing. What is even more serious is that both Beijing and Shanghai, don't forget their two main towns and cities, have been taking a severe bashing, to the extent the areas are becoming like ghost towns. The country is also seeing monstrous floods, with bridges collapsing because of the avalanche of water. We're also seeing lots of housing collapsing because they were built badly. And so much so, they are called tufu buildings, which seem rampant in China. The natural disasters now taking place in that part of the world is now making many homeless, as I said before, and jobless. So much so that young people, as I mentioned, just think about it, are sleeping on the streets. Where do they wash? All these things. They have no jobs. And in essence, as has been reported, they are beginning to rebel against the Chinese Communist Party. This has been unheard of for many decades. The last of such disturbance was in the 80s during the Tiananmen Square massacre, when many students were gunned down because they were demonstrating for freedom, justice, and to be democratic. Well, we may very well be seeing this happening again, because the devastation that has taken place in China is sending them into real poverty. Therefore, the youth of the country are beginning to come out into the open to rebel against the government and wants the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, to resign, because they have simply failed the country. Many have not seen Xi Jinping for some time, and rumors are such that he's the only one in his family still in the country. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the dragon have been awakened and have come back to life, because the young in China are saying quite clearly and categorically, enough is enough. The authorities are now feeling a growing dissatisfaction with the CCP regime, and therefore this spells trouble for them. Many businesses are pulling out, one by one, leaving many without a job. And now in France, serious rains are causing severe flooding. We have seen much of the severe weather patterns in the Middle East. The Middle East, where this form of weather have not been seen for decades. Therefore, we have to finally sit up and ask ourselves as to what is taking place in terms of the weather that is now taking place. We now all know the answer, that global warming and climate change is without a doubt upon us. Let us do something. Therefore, the situation is now too serious a situation, an issue for us, all the United Nations, to just keep talking and doing nothing, because generations to come will not have a place to sleep comfortably or even to survive. The question that seems to be always asked is, who will pay? Well, for a fact, some countries definitely cannot pay because they were not the polluters who made all the money to advance their lifestyle. Emissions from countries, for example, in the Caribbean, were without a doubt negligible or none at all. Not only that, they are some of the poorest countries in our world. Without life on earth, what is the answer to the world we now live in? That is the question many who have the wherewithal to do something and have the answer, not in 10 years' time, but now. The answers are there, and therefore every effort must be made to take or make use of the opportunities we have at this present moment in time. We have been warned that the world is heating up by 1.5 degrees to the extent ice caps are melting. These are not mere words. It is therefore for all to see. Sea levels are rising at a rapid rate, and therefore only a jackass or nincompoop or damn fool or leader will turn a blind eye, if he's that type of person, in facing reality. I now come much closer to home. And it's at this juncture I will take another break. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And as I had said before we went for our break, I'm now coming much closer to home, because at times I wonder how many of us going back to try putting meaning to what we have heard when politicians think that they can fool us with their platitudes. Therefore, in life, if you ever do research, it is always best to go over things thoroughly when you hear and read, because I was astonished that something that was so outrageous can be said. And as St. Lucians, we all have a brain and therefore should have been able to calculate for ourselves truth from reality, or from the falsehoods that some try to inculcate into us. They seem unable to tell the truth because they simply live in a fool's paradise and simply fail to understand that, in theory, humans are a higher form of animal life that should be able to think for themselves and should know right from wrong. But some simply close their eyes to the truth. In St. Lucia, we have seen it and experienced it in a blatant form under Alan Chastanet. Let me make it clear that I have also seen it with the other party in the past. However, I have never seen it as blatant, surreptitiously, and as blunt under the Alan Chastanet government. Alan said something in the House that I now find astonishing. And he now simply cannot deny that he did say, without a doubt, that T.O.R. King bought the land at $60,000 60,000, remember, US dollars an acre. When challenged by Richard in the House, that T.O.R. King was sold 1,000 acres of land at $1 an acre. Allen stood up on a point of order and said that Richard was misleading the House, that the gentleman was leased 188 acres for the DSH project. And the rest he bought, as I said, at $60,000 US dollars an acre. If that is so, then where is that money that he paid for the land? Ladies and gentlemen, work it out for yourself. What is, as Allen said, $60,000, and he bought 500 acres? How much is that? Multiply 60,000 by 500. If my maths is right, one would have to multiply, as I said, 60,000 by 500. That, in anyone's language, would be a substantial amount or sum. Where is this? Therefore, where is the proof that this money was ever paid? Also, Richard said that he bought horses for $112 million out of his own money. That is what Allen said, that he bought that out of his own money. Then there was a discussion on incinerators that was bought and has never been used. All this was to accommodate and to be facilitated by T.O.R. King. Therefore, it is important that we see some evidence of what took place in receipts. And the present government should have all the documents concerned. If they don't, then why not? I would have to ask, and the people of the country would have to be told. I personally refuse to believe that T.O.R. King paid for the horses with his own money. We need a deal of sale for the land, because as Richard made clear, that is what was being said. It is nothing but a gigantic lie, he said. Allen has to produce to the people of this country proof of all the dealings that took place, because he was not only the Prime Minister, but also the Minister of Finance. Allen should bring the evidence to support what he said in the House. Then, in terms of the DSH affair, I listened to one of Allen's lapdogs who have been aligned with every party going, saying or making a statement to the effect on a newsmaker program that Allen was the most humble individual he has met, or words to that effect. This is the same individual who, on a program, making the point that the government was creating an environment affair. That's Allen. Not only that, but the government authorities is being abused or is abusing, or went on further to say on a program that tonight we must declare war. I know all of you have heard it. And therefore, he's putting the civil servants on warning for war. Okay. Then his poodle on another program said that he has walked through the length and breadth of St. Lucia. And it is a hopeless situation at present. After 3 years of this government, what is it we can celebrate? What is in it that we can celebrate in terms of achievement, accomplishment, or the basic of making life better? He went on to say that all we have seen is hardship under Philip Joseph Pierre. He even had the gall to say that health care was at its lowest in St. Lucia. Yet he also forgot that under his watch, People were sleeping on the floor of the hospitals because they could not have a bed to lie on or to be treated. Yet he forgot also that when in power, he is the same ex-minister who said in the House, Mugadusa, what he said. And it was being discussed in terms of the suffering that was taking place under their watch. He made it clear that today they are crying, but they have a lot of crying to do. I therefore ask him, who is doing that crying? In 2020, he made clear that if they do not eat, they will not die or will suffer that much. What made me laugh in the political drama that was unfolding was that Guy Joseph thought he had a one-up on Stephen King in regards to the effectiveness of his role as the Minister of Infrastructure. King was clear now and emphatic that he will not lose sheep, that he will not allow lost sheep, to guide him. So he's calling Guy a lost sheep, which he is. I thought that was brilliant because that is what he tried to do when he had a stranglehold on the Ministry of Infrastructure as Minister of Economic Affairs. So before I end tonight, I want to make a statement that should be heartwarming to the government and the people of St. Lucia by the bilateral support of our diplomatic friend, the government and people of Taiwan. We have seen the handing over of $5.587 million that will be going to useful projects in St. Lucia on the whole. What is tremendous is that the monies will be there to start the different projects that should be taking place in improving our infrastructure. We must therefore truly appreciate the help from our friends and must never be too shy to stand up for what is right in their case. We must stand up to the United Nations and make our voices heard to them, more so the Chinese nation and government that is floundering at present because someone above is helping to unravel the injustices that has taken place in terms of the Taiwanese people. The aid that Taiwan is now giving will benefit the people of St. Lucia on the whole. For example, Castries North and East will benefit in a joint project in building a community center. Isn't that marvelous? That will be of tremendous importance for both communities. The Prime Minister made a few touching statements when he said that hatred is being put out now, which was not there before. The creating of discord in the manner that it is at present was never there before. He made it clear that they had their ups and downs in the past and threw their punches in words, but the hatred that has been put out now was not there. I want to share with you, the public and listeners, to this program, what the Prime Minister had to say on the 3rd anniversary of his term in office. He wanted to thank the people of St. Lucia for the confidence they have placed in him in the first 1,000 days in office. He began by thanking everyone for the mandate that he was given in putting people first. He said that the government have strived in Parliament, Cabinet, and in the constituencies, in their departments also, whenever representing your interests, he says, you the people, both at home and abroad. And he concluded by saying that we remain committed to deliver good governance that is based on values, ethics and the standard of government or governance in public life. On another issue, I saw a headline, and that's going back to my old global warming, that Arizona, not too long ago, there was a scorching summer, and that killed hundreds and threatened the way of life. It keeps coming, ladies and gentlemen. The extreme heat has been the cause of several deaths, and that there may have been about 450 suspected heat-related deaths. There is no doubt, some scientists are saying that this phenomenon is related to global warming of the planet. There is no doubt that at present we are seeing the hottest summers on record outdoors, yet we're seeing a lot of rain, we're seeing typhoon, all sorts, and this can be very dangerous. We are also seeing chaos. Can you believe it, in Spain? In that half of the city of Mallorca, which was swept into abundant rain, which seemed to be raining havoc in an area that should have been somewhat dry. I know, because I lived in Spain for 14 years. Much of the city is flooded. A few days ago, and this was taking place with water levels rising to one of the highest they have ever been seen, that have ever been seen or witnessed before. The storm which hit them was expected to be headed now towards France. However, Mallorca, in the north of the island, was cut off and was still isolated on Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, this sort of weather pattern was certainly unprecedented. This heavy rain activity flooded many basements, etc. Even outdoor activities were banned. More so, it was a holiday. Can you believe that? In Spain, flights had to be cancelled because of the strong storm rain affecting other European regions. And before ending, I will say to you that I will take that break and come before, because I would need to say something that is more intelligent than one would think. So I'll go for the break and I'll come and we'll start off. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Before ending, I want to say to the government, more so the medical department, that we have to be careful, because it seems that COVID-19 virus is now reappearing in China and many other areas. People are suddenly dying. There is a wave impacting many regions of China. The epidemic is unexplained, apparently. Our government must now put things in place for, especially with passengers coming from China or have been to China, and emergency facilities that might be needed. Let us look ahead. This has to be effectively managed, and we must be prepared and not to be caught unawares. So before I close tonight, I want to wish many who are leaving now and later to study in Taiwan to have a good trip, and make St. Lucia proud of you, because the government of Taiwan has allowed almost 40 persons to go and study, and hopefully that number will increase next year. So you must enjoy yourself and work very hard to achieve as much as you can to make both St. Lucia and Taiwan proud of you. I want to say to you, God bless you all. I do wish I was joining you, even at my age, to do research in that lovely country. I therefore say to our government once again to stand up for what is right and just, and therefore stand up for Taiwan whenever they can and wherever you can, and to say loud and clear that Taiwan is an independent country and that the whole world knows that. I always said to the two individuals who did not know much about St. Lucia, and the question was always, is it in Jamaica? Well, they know now that it is an independent island in the Windward Islands, and that Junior Alfred has made that clear with her win in the 100 meters. Therefore, Taiwan is an independent country in the Far East, and is not part of any one China principle or policy. As I close tonight, I want to say something, more so when I hear some in politics are talking about war. I immediately think whether those individuals are sound in the head. Violence in any form, whether in speech or otherwise, achieves very little, but have red in it, that is violence, and without a doubt is impractical and immoral. It is impractical because it is a descending spiral ending in destruction for all. The old law of an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. It is immoral because it seeks to humiliate the opponent rather than win his understanding. It seeks to annihilate rather than to convert and bring reason to the discussion. Any form of violence is immoral because it thrives on hatred rather than love. And in politics, we have seen countries and people being destroyed because of that politics. The question I simply ask is that the way to life or in life is because we want power at all costs, and that is why they talk of war. Power! This sort of attitude in a small country like ours, without a doubt, destroys communities and makes brotherhood impossible. It leaves society in a monologue rather than to dialogue. Any form of violence or talk of it, whether in speech or not, ends up in defeat in itself because it creates bitterness, anger, and brutality in those who believe that it is the best way to feel powerful or be powerful. Once again, I say quite equivocally that those of us who love peace must organize as effectively as those who want to perpetrate their wars. As they spread that propaganda, and you saw it on television, of war, we must spread the propaganda of living peacefully together and doing things the right and in the just way. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we must combine the fervor of good governance, as this government of the people and by the people is showing, that they're doing so by peaceful means, bringing about the change that is needed and necessary. Brothers and sisters, we must therefore demonstrate if we have to, even teach. Don't forget, we have to do that with our kids, our children, and preach to our young that peace is the only way that our small country can survive. And it is by listening to each other, in doing things in the right way. We must never forget that we are a democracy, and not a society where violence and the gun reign supreme. Therefore, we must work unceasingly to lift this country we love so much to a higher destiny, to a newer plateau of compassion, which Philip Joseph Pierre is doing, and he's doing all he can to achieve this. He wants to do it together, but with a more noble expression of humanness. Sometimes we must be able to stand up before our most bitter opponents, and we shall match their capacity to inflict suffering by our capacity to endure suffering, that we will meet your war with soul force. And Philip Joseph Pierre is doing so at the present moment in time. I said to Alan and his poodles of propaganda around the country, and to make it appear that the present government is not fit to run the country, when you were just a fiasco and was seen as a joke in everything your government did. So much so, your government then were the laughing stock of governments, not only in the Caribbean, but worldwide. So let us stop playing games, because that is your level. Philip have a country to run, and therefore have no time for the nincompoops that you, the opposition, have become. Can one think of a government building a jetty for canoes or for small boats that go out to fish, the motorboats, to come in and land their catch, and then have an opposition seeing it as though it was building a toilet or a latrine? That is the level of the opposition's way of thinking. Can one believe that? Well, that is why they better make themselves comfortable in their never, never land, because they will be there for a long, long time to come, even though they threaten war. The question is on whom? Maybe, just maybe, on themselves. I've tried to be honest once again, because to be honest is to confront the truth, however unpleasant the truth may be. I believe that we must expose and face it if we are to achieve a better quality of life for all St. Lucians, both here and abroad. And with God's help, we will achieve the goals we have set ourselves for the betterment of our country. I want once again to say to you all, brothers and sisters, that we must always put our faith and trust in the One Most High, and to always thank him for making us in his own image and likeness. Therefore, I want you to always say to yourself that I was born black, and I'm proud of being born black. God bless you all tonight. Go in peace to serve the One Most High. Always have faith that we will certainly overcome and will move forward with our head held high. Therefore, go in peace, my brothers and sisters, in the One Most High. I say to you now, good night and good night. Goodbye and good night.